And yes, I am Tracie Sharp. Welcome you to the Roe Award dinner. Before we dive into our program, I want to echo the thank yous that Lynn gave at lunch to the staff. The staff has worked so hard to pull off this event. I just want to give them another round of applause. I also want to thank SPN's outstanding board of directors. They oversee our strategy and they keep me on track. I'd like the SPN board members to please stand and be recognized as I call their names. And if you could hold your applause until I'm finished. Our chairman is Carl Helsmer, Ted Abram, Whitney Ball, Giselle Huff, John Jackson, Barb Kenny, Adam Meyerson, Stan Swim, Bridget Wagner, and Thomas Wilcox. Thank you for your service to SPN. You may have noticed some small packages on the table. Well, remember Mike Espinillo, right? Kevin Kerr introduced him to us yesterday at lunch. Most of us will remember Mike because we heard his story. The vital statistics of Mike's life are important, but Kevin knew we wouldn't remember Mike if that's all we heard. He told us of those vital statistics. What he told us of those vital statistics that shaped Mike's life. That is the power of story. And the little box on the table contains the glass heart made by Mike, which Kevin tearfully told us was from his mom, at his mom's insistence that each of us would have one tonight. So may it help us remember to take our work from paper to passion, from spreadsheets to story. And let's give another thank you to Kevin. Well, this year we once again outdone ourselves with over 650 in attendance at this year's annual meeting, and that represents 250 organizations from 49 states. And while this event keeps growing, it also gets younger and younger, which you've heard about as well. I want to ask the Generation Liberty Fellows to please stand and remain standing. This is a special group of attendees. Hold the applause for a second. These are our special group of attendees, all under 30, who had to pass a rigorous application process to attend. Many of the Generation Liberty Fellows are members of Students for Liberty, which will host 700 students at their 5th annual conference coming up in February. It's a sign of their growing influence on our country's campuses. Now remain standing. Now anyone else under 30, please stand. Really under 30, not just mentally. Listen, it may not look like it. Actually, it looks like more than 1 in 5. Look around. The future is bright. Thank you. Well, I was well under the age of 30 the last time I lived here in the Northwest, which you heard about last night. Funny story, even funnier story than the one last night. One of my first assignments working with John Carlson. John, are you here tonight? There you are, John Carlson. When I worked with John Carlson at the Washington Institute, one of the first things I was assigned to do was to help organize a big fundraising dinner featuring William F. Buckley. Now at the time, it was the late 80s, and we had this donated office space just about 4 blocks that way. And the office space had this 1970s dark wood paneling and orange shag rug that was worn so thin in places that you could see the plywood showing through. It was a great place. It was free, so hey, we got a lot done. So Carlson picks up Buckley from the airport, and he decides it's a good idea to bring him back to this office. And so I'm working on whatever it was, Selectric typewriter or the Radio Shack computer, whatever it was we had back in those days. And I turn around and there's Bill Buckley. He walks over to greet me by my desk, and wouldn't you know it, his feet stand right on the plywood spot by my desk to shake my hand. It's like, hi, Mr. Buckley. It must have left an impression because, it left an emotional impression because later that evening in his dinner speech, he begged the audience to donate to this poor little think tank. And in his New England drawl, I visited their dilapidated offices. You really must give to them. And so fundraising took off, and John was a genius bringing Buckley to our offices. So it was good times. It was an exciting time back in the late 80s when Reagan was wrapping up his presidency and the Berlin Wall had fallen. And it seemed like our ideas were finally getting traction. Now current events are at a pitch that we've never seen before, nor could we have imagined it back in those days. What I hope we are witnessing is the painful collapse of the left's grand project of building a nanny state by spending other people's money. But what they didn't consider was what would happen when they ran out of other people's money. But we know what happens. We're seeing it in real time. The drawn-out crashing of an impossible dream. Federal entitlement programs going broke. Public employee pension programs with free lifetime health care going broke. Public sector unions that extracted these impossible dreams from state governments losing power and credibility. The nanny state dream is running into the nightmare of reality. As the wreckage is cleared away, our organizations face a huge opportunity to restore America to an economic opportunity society, as Arthur Brooks mentioned at lunch today. Ironically, to do that, we must spend other people's money. But that's a superficial irony, really. The crucial difference is that we don't confiscate other people's money that we spend. We ask for it, and our donors voluntarily contribute. They understand that freedom isn't free, and they are willing to support your cause to restore their freedom. So let me ask you what might seem like kind of a crazy question, especially after 3 days of all this freedom talk. How seriously do you believe in the cause? Do you believe that you have the capacity to change people's lives for the better? Do you really believe that you're the key to defending and advancing liberty in your state? And how much time do you really think we have left to do that? I'm making it personal because we hear speeches all the time centered around the big we. But history is written by those relatively few people who take personal responsibility for changing the society around them because they truly believe that they can change lives. Here's a personal example. Earlier this year, SPN hosted a board retreat. That's board with an A in the middle of it. And we were challenged by strategists to ask ourselves, is SPN building policy corporations, or are we promoting policy entrepreneurs? Is SPN a think tank hospital, or are we free market venture capitalists trying to maximize the impact of state think tanks? As soon as I began thinking in those different terms, I realized it isn't good enough to build policy corporations in every state, and we will never win if all SPN is a think tank hospital. Good enough is not good enough. We cannot and we will not rest on just having a 50-state network. The network must move the needle towards freedom. As we face 2012, are you willing to personally do what it takes, change whatever you need to in order to help liberty prevail? Are you willing to turn the spreadsheets into stories? To win that story war, as Kevin told us? To put emotions into numbers, as Chip told us? And to show lawmakers and the electorate why liberty is essential to their future, all of our futures, to the dreams they hold for themselves, their families, and others. Will you be open to throwing your long-held ways of doing things out the window if there's an opportunity to win with a new idea? Are you willing to take that risk? Are you really willing to play to win, not just not lose? These are tough questions. They require purposeful thoughts and purposeful answers. And 2012 is just 4 months away, so right now is a great time to decide. And we've certainly come a long way in the last 20 plus years. And as you've seen and heard in the stories throughout this event, we have many bright spots that we can indeed scale up. And now is really our time to shine. In closing, let me give the same challenge I gave a few months ago to several development directors, many of which are in the room. I asked them, hey, do you really want to win? And even the good book tackles this question. In 1 Corinthians 9:24 it says, don't you realize that in a race everyone runs, but only one gets the prize? So run to win. And if scripture is not spicy enough for you, then you can follow Harry Truman's advice. Give him hell. Thank you. We want to move forward into the part of our program to give out our Roe Award. In 1992, some of the founders of State Policy Network noticed something about organizations that promote expansive government. They were heaping honors on anyone who stubbed their toe trying to raise taxes or restrict individual liberty. So they decided that SPN should establish an annual award, the Tom Roe Award, to recognize an individual who showed unusual leadership, innovation, and achievement in promoting free markets and limited government at the state and local level. In presenting this award each year, we recognize two people: the person who receives the award and the person for whom this award is named after. I want to begin with a few words about why this award was named in honor of Tom Roe. Many people contribute to the betterment of society. Relatively few are remembered and appreciated beyond the span of their years. We remember those few for two reasons: because they possessed a vision worth achieving, and because they discovered a means for achieving that vision. Tom Roe had a vision for freedom. He saw our liberties under constant assault, and he conceived a means of defending and advancing liberty. One of his inventions was State Policy Network. SPN Chairman Carl Hellstrom once characterized Tom Roe in two crystallized sentences. He was a quiet man who believed passionately in individual liberty. He was an entrepreneur who knew the hard work it takes to bring ideas down to earth and make dreams into reality. In turning State Policy Network from a vision to reality, Tom Roe presented us with both a gift and a challenge. To advance freedom as an end, we must constantly invest the means to that end. We must understand, as Tom did, that although freedom can never be entirely secured, it can be entirely lost. That is why attention to the means of defending liberty is so crucially important. The Roe Award is a tribute to an individual in the state public policy movement who has shown a passion for liberty, a willingness to work for it, and noteworthy achievement of turning dreams into reality. Appropriately, the Roe Award is an eagle, a symbol of liberty, and of the courage and conviction required to preserve it. The award this evening will be presented by Paul Jacob, a leading national figure in state-level initiative and referendum, and president of Citizens in Charge Foundation. Paul has worked on over 100 initiative and ballot access campaigns in nearly every state. Paul hosts Common Sense, an online radio, print, and opinion program, which reaches a growing list online of over 15,000 email subscribers and is aired daily by more than 150 stations in 48 states. For more than a decade, Paul was the leading voice in the term limits movement, running U.S. term limits, the nation's largest term limits group. For those efforts, columnist Robert Novak good-naturedly called him, quote, the most hated man in Washington. Being hated in Washington is like a badge of honor for us. It's a badge of honor to all of us who defend liberty in the states.